I'm your host, Tim Brigham, and this is Coffee is for Closers, where we take a look at the hottest real estate trends, the current lending environment, and more importantly, who's actually closing transactions in this current world that we live in. Look, you're going to want to stay tuned. The panel of guests that I have planned today is nothing short of incredible. Stick around. But most importantly, this is for coffee drinkers only. All right, let's take a look at the most recent data available from the National Association of Realtors. I find this staggering, right? We've got October of 20, 17,678 transactions year to date. Fast forward a year to 21, 15,000.9. That's only a difference of 1,700 transactions. Now we come to the most recent year in 22 in a down market, 11.4. We're only 4,400 transactions off from the height of the market. What's really interesting, the media loves to talk about this 28% decline, but what does that actually even mean? Going from 16 to 11.5? That means we still had 11,000 transactions happening in October. With the November report still pending, it must be very interesting how this year ends up. Speaking of which, let's take a look at the Big Shot report coming up next. And here it is, the moment we've all been waiting for, the Big Shot report. We look at the top producers in Chicago for November 2022. And looks like this month we got a little bit of a boys club going on. Number 5, we got Colin Hebson coming in with 11 units for 9.1 million. 4 spot, we got Greg Pekarski, 14 for 6.6. Lay Marcus, 15.5. So a shared transaction, but $11.4 million. Ben Lales, 17 for 14.2. And then the King of Chicago, Matt Laracy, 28 units for 11.6. Congratulations on a fantastic November. That's awesome for the city, but what's going on in the Northwest Burbs? I've heard there's a lot of activity out there. I'm pretty proud to see that we've got some ladies stepping into the scene this time. No longer a boys club. Starting out number 5. Kim Alden, 4 for just over $1 million. David Schwab stepping in for 5 units for over 1.5 million. Irina, 5, 1.5. Holly Connors coming in at 6 for 3.3. Great job. And then the leader of the pack, John Morrison, 7.5 units, so a shared transaction, but for a total volume of $7.3 million in November. That's fantastic. Let's take a look at one of my favorite suburbs, Arlington Heights. And coming in number 5, Carolyn Starr with 2.5 units, so a shared transaction for 1.2 million. Jen Ortman brings in the number 4 spot with 3 units for 1.3. Lisa Anderson's 3 units for just shy of $1 million. Great job, Lisa. David Schwab coming in 4 units for 1.3 million. And then the star of the show, Holly Connors, 5 units for 2.9. Stay right there because you're going to want to see an exclusive interview I have with her coming up next.
This episode is brought to you by Full Bars Media, where real estate companies get creative. We elevate brands with cinematic video and storytelling to drive measurable results. That means new renters, new buyers, and willing sellers in every vertical of real estate. Check your connection. Do you have full bars?
If you're just tuning in, my name is Tim Brigham, and I'm your host for Coffee is for Closers. This is a conversation with top performers that are just consistent in their production no matter the current market. And today we have Holly Connors with us, who's an absolute legend in the business. Founding member of At Properties, and I think $780 million total
year to date,
so far?
Yeah, that's accurate.
Incredible year last year. I think you did, just over 100 million?
About, a little bit more, yeah.
And then this year, again, 90 million?
We'll close out about 100 million, yeah.
Incredible.
The end of the year.
Incredible. So, such a down market. I'd love to hear about it.
What a crazy introduction. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. So, tell me about you. Let's start off. I know a little bit about you, but I think our viewers would love to hear about you and how Holly runs her ship.
Thank you. So I've been in real estate a little over 20 years. I started with At Properties. I haven't been anywhere else. I answered a Craigslist ad for Mike and Thad looking for an assistant, the owners of At Properties.
A Craigslist ad?
A Craigslist ad. That's how old I am, a Craigslist ad.
Wow.
They took me on. I worked with them and Dave Wolf and Ann Karan, who are also legends in this industry.
What a list there. Yeah, that's
yeah,
great.
right. I was fortunate to learn from the best, and as their assistant for a very short amount of time, about a year, decided that I wanted to be on my own and parted ways as their assistant and went off on my own as my own broker.
Wow, that's incredible. So, I think what a lot of people, they see on social media and they see these things, they see all this, glitz and glamour and all these other things. But tell me about you. Right?
Sure. So today I'm here in a dress and heels, but the reality is I pick up dirty underwear, I put away dishes, I move boxes of furniture, I'm out in the snow. It's a reality that this career choice is not clean.
Yeah.
There's a lot of mess.
Yeah. I think a lot of people, I'll be honest, right? I used to think that realtors would show up to somebody else's house and they would say, wow, this is great. You should buy this, right? Sign right here.
Just open the door.
Right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. What do you think is the biggest thing that people would be surprised about of how hard your job is?
Our job is physically demanding, and that's certainly a part of it, but I think the hardest part is knowing the market and being able to articulate that back to the buyer. I think that's really important and crucial. I also think talking about how the house or condo or whatever you're selling actually works, how it actually happens, is important too. And buyers aren't always looking for that in their agent or their broker, but I think they should be.
It's interesting, right? I've seen you do this presentation, but how important is data? I think it's amazing how you use data as almost like a weapon, right?
A weapon? That's funny.
It's truth.
That's
it's the
funny.
Truth.
I don't think data is a weapon. I think data is an important tool to figure out how you want to move forward. I think data can go any direction, and understanding the data and how to articulate the data and how to really dig into the information so that the consumer understands it is crucial. Buyers need to understand how the market is working. Real estate is a lot less like real estate and more like the stock market. And having a broker who can articulate that and work through the data is crucial.
So give me some examples. Like, what was something that you primarily work into your presentation if somebody's looking to sell their home? What's the secret sauce that comes out that you love of the data points?
A couple of my favorites are absorption rate, month supply of inventory. I really like total showings to contract. That's a data point I like in residential real estate on the listing side. And I think those are important data points on the buy side as well. I like median price. Am I showing my nerdiness now?
But that's what we want. We want to see
I like the nerd.
Right.
I'm a little bit of a nerd.
Everybody sees on social media, I'm in real estate and this and that. They don't understand that there's actual work involved.
There's hard work and a lot of math.
Right.
This is a B2C environment. I'm working with consumers, and there's emotion and there's feeling. And so having the ability to work with that feeling, but also use those feelings as a tool to be positive and using the data and the math to be successful.
Right. I think that's the most important piece, is using the data to be successful, not just saying, hey, I'm going to list my house.
And those successes aren't mine. Those successes are my clients. Those successes are for the consumer to do better and be better in real estate.
Right. So I have to ask you a question that, everybody tuning in is going to want to know the answer to.
Yeah.
I know you're focused on Arlington Heights, right?
I do work in the suburbs. Yes, my office is in downtown Arlington Heights.
So are the Bears really coming?
In my opinion, I would say yes. And I believe that in part because at a community meeting, the representatives for the organization said that Arlington Heights is really their only choice. I think it's a great move for the organization. I think it's a positive move for the community, and I think it really benefits the suburbs.
It's interesting. So how would you think that would impact the market? So like for me, right, as a normal consumer, right, the data points.
Well, you're not normal. Let's call a spade a spade.
You heard it here first. So listen, the first part that we look at with a stadium or a casino, right? I look at it as the casino effect, right? You bring in something and you not necessarily have a good vibe about that type of growth. What's your opinion on if the Bears were to move?
I think that we have to look at other areas where there's been big change. Wrigleyville, for example, in the last few years, there's been big change there, and it's been positive. I think we need to look at Frisco, Texas. I think we need to look at Arizona. I think we need to look at Oakland. And when big sports teams make big moves, what happens to the community around it? A great example would be Truist Park outside of Atlanta. When the Braves moved, what happened to the area around there?
Yeah.
And we can see from history what's going to happen. We can almost predict the future based on history. So if we look at that information and those data points, and we look at the math and the science and what happened in real estate, what happened to police, fire, infrastructure, we can make good decisions to move forward. I have an incredible amount of faith in our community leaders in our village, both in Arlington Heights and Palatine, Buffalo Grove, Elk Grove, Rolling Meadows. All of the community leaders are doing everything they can to ensure that our communities stay safe, that they stay engaged, and they can move forward in a positive way.
Can you imagine the Bears coming
I know,
to
it's so cool.
It's insane.
It's so cool.
It's insane. It's going to be so cool.
I could walk there. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, you know, I think that the community involvement too is that all the development that the NFL has shown in the past and what they're going to do surrounding it is going to be incredible, because then it'll be a new Arlington Heights, right?
Well, I don't want to say new Arlington Heights. I think it's an enhanced.
Yeah, correct. I stand corrected. Yeah.
Something I love about the suburbs in Arlington Heights specifically is that small town feel. Now, fun fact, Arlington Heights is the largest suburb in Cook County. Schaumburg could win, but it covers a couple counties, so it's a little unfair little point there.
Yeah.
I love that Arlington Heights is a small town feel. And I have a lot of value in that. And I think bringing the Bears to Arlington Heights isn't going to change that. I believe firmly that it will stay at small town feel, but just enhance what we already have.
Love it. I love it. So,
just think of the tax income.
I mean, it's a game changer. It's a complete game changer, and all that gets poured right back into the community.
We already run at a budget positive. Let's keep moving forward.
Yeah.
Change is inevitable.
The growth and development that comes with it. It's going to be awesome.
Yeah.
So let's talk about COVID, right? I think that's what everybody's mind with when it comes to real estate as well. COVID created this giant boom. Now what? Do you think the media's portrayal of what's going on right now is real, or what are you seeing happening?
I don't. If you actually hear what the media in general is saying, it's not 100% accurate. I think we have to really look at the data and understand the data to be accurate. I can throw out numbers to you all day, like average in 2019 was 5 showings to contract in all of MRED, and now it's 8.
Yeah.
But what does that mean? If you don't understand the data, then the consumer is just going to hear you and move on. And I think it's important to really comprehend what's actually happening in the marketplace.
So for everybody that's listening that doesn't understand what you just said, can you go a little deeper with that? Explain that data.
So in 2019, the average listing needed 5 showings to get a contract.
Okay.
Simple.
Sure.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
When we went through COVID, we went up to 7 or 7.5 or almost 8 showings to get a contract. That's great, right? That means that we're getting more showings per listing to get it.
That's surprising. Like, I would think it was less, right? Because everything moves so quickly.
That's
and you're
right.
saying it actually increased.
It increased. Okay. There were more buyers in the market, so more demand.
Yeah, okay.
We are now in all of MRED at 8.3 showings on average to get a contract.
Wow.
Where in 2019 we were at less. So what does that tell you about demand?
Yeah, I can tell you as a mortgage lender, my phone doesn't stop.
Right.
Right? And when people call and say, well, interest rates are supposed to have affected things, but they really, we're starting to look at things like a little bit differently. Like, interest rates are cyclical. So they're up right now. But what happens when they go back down?
Right. And I'm advising, maybe like you, that consumers really need to be in the marketplace now. Because if rates go up slightly even more, or if they come down, you're positioned to make good financial decisions for the long term.
Yeah, so I'm coaching on, right, what happens if rates come down, the demand will increase. But if you're telling me that we're still having showings, I'm still issuing pre-approvals, that tells us our demand is already at an unsustainable level because we don't have inventory to support.
That's right.
Rates drop. You'll have a consumer that maybe is hanging on to their house that doesn't want to sell to buy another one because their current interest rates are in the 3s and 4s. If our rates drop, maybe they're willing to actually move on to another house versus right now they're looking at something that's a little bit higher. It's for a perfect storm. You buy now and you negotiate, right?
Agree.
And then refinance it later.
Agree.
Right.
I think you're also seeing the piece where in the 50s, consumers bought a house and they made a 30 or 40-year commitment.
Yeah.
That's not the norm anymore. I don't know that math, but I would assume the average consumer is moving every 4 to 7 years. I think that's realistic.
We saw in the past that the average time for a borrower to hold a mortgage is 3 years.
Right.
I believe that's unshortened since rates did what they just did.
Fair enough. So when looking at that, are buyers making long-term huge commitments? I don't think so. So getting into the marketplace, earning your equity back, making some money and moving on, I think is an appropriate action step.
Yeah, I agree. You know, I got to ask you something, right? So the media is telling us that we've got this down market. Everything's just awful and, subprime. Everybody loves to talk about the 2008 like it's in comparison.
That's over. Let's move on.
At the same time.
Sorry, not you move on. Let's media move on.
No, it's fine. At the same time, JP Morgan is just, an article came, did you see this with Haven?
Oh, yeah.
They're talking about buying $1 billion
Yes.
or developing $1 billion in single family rental
Yes.
real estate.
Yes.
So if real estate's this toxic waste, why are they putting all this money into it? I don't understand.
Real estate is a phenomenal investment. The whole thing is confusing to me. I like that I like that JP Morgan is getting involved. I think it's important. I like that the banks have some involvement in some way. But $1 billion in real estate for an entity of that size makes me a little concerned for what the media is portraying versus what the banks are seeing. If the media is saying that the market is so terrible, why would JP Morgan want to get in at $1 billion?
Well, your analogy earlier of that real estate's similar to Wall Street, I would think, do you call that, I don't know, stock manipulation? I mean, you're lowering the price because the consumers think, oh, everything's down. That's why you should pay this more expensive rent because you shouldn't buy.
Maybe it's manipulating the market. I'm not really sure. I haven't understood it enough to know exactly what the motivation is.
Sure.
But I do think that they've outsourced it to a third-party company. Also makes me go,
Yeah, right. Pass it off to your friends and then plausible deniability.
And let's understand this third-party company.
Sure.
Right? There isn't a whole lot on their website to understand.
I saw that too. There's really not a lot there, which tells me that maybe, we're speculating, but maybe it's his friend. I don't know. Maybe they just decided that, we're going to build some houses.
I think that it's important that everyone gets involved in the best way that they can.
Sure.
And I think that JP Morgan wants to get involved. They should. But $1 billion into the real estate market could artificially inflate the market and could create an industry or a space that doesn't make sense for the consumer.
Yeah, I agree. So talking about the market and consumers and what they're afraid of with 2008 and the exposure and whatnot, how about inflation? Last week we saw a report come out, that was showing that inflation was cooling, right? And so what did we see happen? We saw that interest rates followed, just like I've been saying. Well, what's interesting about that is that, the 2008 mortgage crisis and inflation and all these scary terminology that's brought around. Are you hearing that with your buyers and sellers today? Is that an actual problem?
They're asking the question, but they're not concerned. They're asking the question because they're informed and they want to understand what's happening. But the reality is, our market, specifically in the Midwest, is just keeping up. We didn't see the dramatic appreciation that the coasts saw.
Right.
We saw a relatively steady appreciation, but we didn't see absorbent amounts go through the roof.
Right.
So the Midwest really hasn't seen this dramatic inflation in real estate like other parts of our country have.
It's interesting you bring that up too, is that, the desert states, right? Quickest to climb, quickest to fall. So when we see these reports that are going to come out probably next year that say that, real estate's come down in price, well, they came down from what?
From what? That's always the question. From what?
If a California buyer sells his house, and he's got $1 million in equity, and he pays cash for a house in Arizona, but he pays $150,000 over ask.
Right.
And it comes down 75, you're still up 75.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, I don't think we saw much of that in Illinois, right?
Again, real estate is more like the stock market than it is real estate.
Yeah, fair enough. So, I got a question for you.
I'm ready.
You had to take a guess at what you think the biggest price increase due to inflation was, commodity-wise. What do you think it was?
Commodity-wise, I'm going to say milk.
Milk. It's a good guess. It was actually eggs.
Oh!
For those of you who don't know, I actually have chickens. I feel like chicken's the new Bitcoin now.
And you told me stories about your chickens talking to you.
Oh, yeah, they do. Yeah, listen, I have friends and they have feathers and it's fine, okay? I'm proud of it. No, honestly, they're the best pets ever to have, and their maintenance is pretty minimal. But I have eggs now, and I get to give everybody eggs as presents.
I'll be over for egg souffle.
Yeah, done. Done and done. So did you see this whole report that Lawrence Yun came out with, the chief economist for National Association of Realtors?
Yes, I did.
It's wild, right?
It is wild.
I mean, we're still seeing a 0.3% in appreciation.
Yeah.
Oh, the market's going to crash, right? When chief economists are telling us that we're still going to, now, not a huge number, but at least it points us in the direction of where we're going.
Right.
Right? What do you think the hottest market is to look out for next year?
You know I read the article, right?
Yeah, well, of course you read the article. So Atlanta, right?
Right,
So
Atlanta.
If Atlanta is going to be doing well, which historically, it's up, down, like everything else, that tells us that we're seeing growth in these markets. That maybe the desert states have something to do with the national reports, but we're still going to see appreciation numbers.
I think so. I don't think we're going to see any major declines or huge fallouts. We have quality loans, as you know.
Yep.
We have quality borrowers, and we really don't have any negative equity in the houses. Buyers needed to put something down in order to buy a house, so we really don't have any huge negativity here.
It's a great point. The loan quality has never been higher, right? So when you compare the 2008 scaries, right, of everybody thinking, oh, there's going to be this.
Right.
To get a mortgage these days, you can't really lie. You have to show your tax returns. You have to show your income.
Right.
There's products out there that let you to be a little creative, but for the most part, you're really an honest borrower with good credit and a job that's buying real estate these days.
Right. Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah. So if you had to give unfiltered advice to an agent who's watching this, listening to you doing
on camera,
90 million.
Record.
Listening to you 90 million, right? Mental health's a big thing right now.
Yeah.
You have some people that are watching these going, well, that's great for you. I'm doing all the work, I'm doing all the things. What advice would you give an agent that's struggling with production right now, or that is just listening to you and doesn't have maybe the coaching or mentoring behind them?
Well, call me. I'll talk to you. I'm just a girl who happened to wear heels today, but really, I clean toilets and put away dirty underwear in everyone else's house just like you do. I'm no different. Advice for a new agent or an agent that's struggling?
Sure.
Stick at it. Know the market. That is, I think, the biggest feature of a broker is knowing and understanding the market. I could tell you that I've been in almost every single home for sale in my network where I sell, and that's it's
true.
Nerdy, but it's true. And that's my job. Is I can sit down with a seller and say your house is likely worth X, Y, or Z because I have been in these 10 houses and I know exactly what they smelled like. I know what they felt like. I know what the floor plan looked like. I understand how the market is moving, and that's really important to know.
Yeah, through all of it, right? What I get from you consistency, right?
Yeah.
You're consistently learning the data, you're learning what's going on, and you're staying the course. So that way you can be the best for your buyer, your seller. So, I have to ask you this, since you're helping others, it's a cool exercise.
Okay.
Tim Ferriss actually is the one I heard this from, and I just want to replicate it. So if you had to choose a quote that you could put on a billboard for everybody to see, what would it be?
Well, this wasn't on our pre-questionnaire. I don't know.
Listen, I'm telling you. What is your quote? What was your mantra that you live by that you would share with others?
Can I swear on this?
Yeah, please.
Don't be an asshole.
Right.
The number one rule in life is just be cool.
Yeah.
And the world will follow you. The golden rule. Maybe I would choose something cleaner. The golden rule. Just do unto others as you would want others to do unto you, and the world will be good to you back.
I can tell you that for those of you watching this, that it's true, right? We've done deals together, and the consistency behind it is that the clients will go, Holly's awesome. And it's not just she's great, it's that she's awesome. Like, she'll actually tell me what I need to hear, not what I want to hear.
And that's a hard part of the job. So I can think of a particular client where their house needed to be really cleaned and really staged, and they really needed to do the extra work. It smelled like wet dog. And it's my responsibility to make sure that the product sells.
Yeah.
And if I can't tell the seller that your house smells like wet, dirty dog, I have failed my seller.
Yeah.
So having those tough conversations is an important part of the job. There's a nice way to do it, but it's an important part.
I think that a lot of agents, especially if it's their only deal, they get scared, right? So we see these things pop up on social media where, and I'm not a fan of this, I don't think it's fair to make fun of someone's house, but it happens, right? All those crazy groups and all those things. You don't want that to be your listing, right?
Oh no, but I've had those listings on those places, and sometimes it's really good marketing.
All right, so what comes to mind is your worst listing? Is it the dog one?
Well, you know the doghouse. No, my worst listing, I would argue that the hardest listing I ever had to sell was one of my first listings because I didn't know what I was doing and I made some mistakes. And I learned from those and I did much better and I won't ever make those errors again.
Yeah.
It takes a long time to really comprehend that you're helping a person make one of the biggest financial decisions in their life and a humongous emotional decision. And guiding them through that with honesty is crucial. It's just a big part of the job.
Blunt and brutal honesty, right?
Brutal.
Because
brutal.
Sometimes you don't want to hear it.
Brutal.
That's great. So who's your hero, if you had to pick one?
Batman.
Batman's your hero? Just saying. You heard it here first. Holly, thank you so much for coming in. I appreciate you. I know you're such a busy schedule.
Thank you.
And for coming in for this show to give value back to everybody, we really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. And look at this studio. You've done an amazing job here. This is really impressive.
Thank you. Always forget, coffee's for closers. Cheers. Wow. What an incredible conversation with somebody who really humanizes a transaction. There's no secret sauce here. It's just all hard work and math. What an incredible person to spend her time with us today, and I hope you took some value from that. But what I have up next, man, you're not going to want to miss this. Stay tuned.
Full Bars Media also offers real-time renderings for pre-construction homes. Architects, developers, and brokerages utilize our services to create everything they need to sell real estate faster with animated videos and interactive experiences. Are you selling a new development? Get in touch with our team to get started. Seeing is believing.
We're back with Coffee is for Closers. I'm your host, Tim Brigham, and today with me is a legend in the commercial real estate world, Kevin Rocio, K-Rock. Pleasure to have you, brother. Thank you so much for having me. So those that don't, I mean, I know you well. I've known you for many years, but those who don't know you, please tell me about Kevin.
Born and raised on the west side of Chicago, moved to the suburbs in 1977, graduated, became an investment banker. From there, got bored, moved back to Chicago in 1991 as a lender. And I affectionately say that I've been a lazy person all my life. So what I mean by that as a lender, while everybody else would go to establish relationships with realtors, I established relationships with the unions.
Oh, wow.
And so as a result, grew my business to the point where in 1997, was the fourth largest lender in the country behind Wells Fargo.
Wow.
And then retired when we sold our company to American Home Mortgage, which was publicly traded. I stepped away, and then in 2007, when National City was being purchased by PNC, I retired from lending. Took 2 years off and decided that I wanted to stay in real estate, but I didn't like the residential route, so I decided to become a commercial broker.
Why? Why did you not like the residential route? You like commercial?
I jokingly say because I don't like people. Okay.
Fair enough.
I have very poor interpersonal skills, all right? And what I mean by that is that I'm an analytic person.
Yeah.
No emotions, just I don't care. And people sometimes get turned off by that, but it's just, that's my personality. So started commercial real estate and quickly became #1 commercial broker for ad properties. now run the #1 team for commercial team for properties.
Well, I'll pause here and I'll say that everybody that meets you either loves or hates you, and most of them love
I'm
you.
a social introvert.
Yeah. You're amazing, Kevin. You command the room every time you walk into
Thank
it,
you.
and I think that there's some beauty behind what you just said, is that you kind of remove emotion out of things, and you look at the data, right? Something that you say on a regular basis. What is the facts? What are the truth, right?
So the difference is on the residential versus commercial. For example, let's say this where we're at was an apartment. People come in and they make their decisions on superficial things: carpet, walls, colors, appliances, all that. Commercial people walk in and say, "How much rent can I get for this?"
Yeah.
Different story. So
It's about math.
It's all about the math. So I just follow the math.
Who are your mentors in the business?
So growing up, it was Lee Iacocca. Throughout my career as a lender and even as a realtor, it's Thad Wong.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So he took you into the commercial side of it too, yeah?
So he approached me in 2007 as I was retiring. However, I didn't know anything about commercial. It was seductive. So I said, let me go work for a national firm for 2 years, and I'll come back in 2009. In 2009, I came back, and here we are.
What advice did he give you when you started stepping into it?
It wasn't really any advice. He just said, one of the things that he said that he really liked about me was that I was what did he tell Cranes? I was a true marketer, if there ever was one.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'd say that. Yeah. I mean, that's something I take from you every single time is how to command your brand, right?
Absolutely.
And what is the most important piece?
That's what I tell people now. They say, what do you do? I'm in brand management.
Yeah.
I'm surrounded by great people, but I manage the brand.
I think you're the epitome of what App Properties, preaches. They're a marketing company first, right?
Thank you. Absolutely. That's exactly what it is.
It's amazing. It's amazing. So, you're a very successful agent. You've closed quite a bit of business over the years and made quite a bit of name for yourself. Talk to me about COVID, right? Talk about what happened and what we're experiencing now.
So I think COVID was probably one of the best things that ever happened to America.
Wow, that's bold.
And I'll say this: before COVID, we were relaxed and we were handed everything. And I'm going to use a personal. So for me personally, I freaked out when COVID happened because it was like, oh my God, how am I going to work with how am I going to do my business, what have you?
Yeah.
So we adapted quickly, and then we got into this new groove of working smart and hard at the same time, and the growth from 2020 to 2022, I still sit back and go, wow. And it's because I had to change the way I work. For example, I no longer personally handle every transaction that I'm compensated for. So what I decided to do is there's 4,000 agents within App Properties.
Yeah.
And so what I did was, if someone on the North Shore has an apartment building they want to sell, I have them take the listing. I'm the analyst behind it, so that they take the volume credit. That way, I can be in multiple places at one time.
Wow.
And
wow.
that's what COVID did. Because before, I'd be chasing those deals.
Yeah, I mean, you touched on a couple of things, right? I think the start of it is that tough times make tough men, right? And then
And women.
right? And then tough men and women make soft times, which then
Absolutely.
soft men and women, right? And it's just the cycle perpetuates.
It is a
itself.
cycle.
I think this COVID brought out, what we really need to do, what we need to get back focused on, right? And the separation is there. But, you talking about, the how much growth we had and all the things that happened, all the fear that happened overnight. Because I think as mortgage lenders, we had the same problem, right? I can't go to the office anymore. I can't command my team. I can't do these things. This is what's so special about you, is that you figured out, listen, maybe I need to work smarter, not harder. Maybe I need to go and network with more people and
more than I already do.
share the knowledge and be compensated for it that way.
So, for example, and that brings up a good point. So this year, as we were returning back to the office, I said, okay, what should I do? What should I do? Because one of the things I noticed when we were at home, agents would call me to ask, how do I put this deal together? And it could be from Compass to Exit to, it was across the board.
Yeah.
So I said, you know what? I'm going to put together this class, and I'm going to teach one agent a week to how to properly price 2 to 4 units and how to properly price smaller apartment buildings. Why? because when they have a client in front of them, they need to understand and not trip up and lose the opportunity. So the goal was by the end of the year, 52 agents. As of last week, when we finished with Lee Marcus's team, we had 350 at-property agents that we taught and about 25 outside agents that paid to be taught.
Wow.
Okay. And so what that does, people say, what does that mean? Well, that means now I got 355 agents from at-properties that when a client says I'm interested in 2 to 4, they can at least engage the conversation. And then if it's something that makes sense that I work with them, they're out doing the showings, they're out doing the inspections. Together we're doing the negotiations, and we just cover more ground quickly.
Yeah. You know, it's amazing, right? I think in your world, especially through social media and things, you'll see things get posted on, an agent will dabble in the commercial space, right? They jump out from residential and they think, well, the client wants to sell this building. What's interesting is you'll see, again, social media tags, and I don't necessarily agree with making fun of agents or any of that, but that's what ends up happening is that, how did you come up with your purchase price? And the agent will say, well, that's how much the client wanted to sell it for, right? Not understanding cap rate or any of these other things. What advice would you have for any agents, that are looking to dabble in commercial?
Don't dabble. Get yourself a mentor. You should, if this is a product type that you want to sell, at least until you understand what you're selling, you should have a mentor, someone in your office, no matter if, like I said, if it's Compass, Ad, Sotheby's, what have you, someone that knows how to do this business. Do it together. Make sure the numbers are there, because in this class, for example, I teach and I show how many canceled and expired 2 to 4s and apartment building listings there are in MLS. Why? Because a seller says, hey, I want to sell my building for $4 million. You do all the paperwork and put it in MLS for $4 million. And then a commercial broker comes through and said, that building is only worth 3.2.
Yeah.
Why? Because the data doesn't match the numbers.
Yeah.
And that's what a mentor will figure out quickly.
That's great advice. I think it really has to do with the income, not the actual, that creates the sales price, not the other way around,
It's
right?
the combination of the income and the expenses that are tied to it to produce that income.
Yeah, that's incredible. So, switching gears, right? COVID, we had this reaction. What are you seeing, in the market today? Are you seeing demand? Are we seeing this doom and gloom that the media is painting the picture on?
Okay, so I'm going to separate it like this. Your primary residence is a liability on your financial statement.
Yeah.
Unless it's free and clear.
Yeah.
Okay? So here's the difference. As the market changes, as the economy changes, you decide you do not want this liability anymore, and you're searching for someone who will take on that liability.
Right.
Okay? Commercial. We don't care what's going on in the world, because our pricing is an income producing asset. If someone is ready to step out for generational, they're retiring, whatever, there's someone that needs that income producing asset. So I'm as busy now as I was in 2021, which was a record year.
Wow.
Okay. I mean,
Wow.
we're running about 40 leads a week.
Wow.
That I have to filter through. And it's mind blowing. But like I tell my team, this is what we strive to build.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing. I'm seeing reports come out that are talking about, we're starting to see vacancy factors drop, right? Lowest levels we've seen in 15 years. I think it's 6.1 or something like that. Right?
Once again, because the 99% are the biggest consumers. And you just think about COVID. I can't tell you how many Amazon buildings or trucks I saw at apartment buildings when I would go visit. Okay,
Yeah.
Where's that money coming from? It was subsidized.
Yeah.
All right. But unfortunately, we live in a society that's impressed by superficial things.
Wow. Yeah.
And so reduce vacancy is not surprising. And there's another thing that's floating around the air. People are responding to Chase spending $1 billion for a real estate portfolio.
Yeah.
So here's what most people seem to quickly have forgot. In 2008, due to the record number of foreclosures and abandoned houses, the government had to put up $1 trillion in neighborhood stabilization funds. Mm-hmm. And they went around the United States and they went to certain developers and they said, put these houses back together, put them back on the rent roll till the market improves and sell them off.
Yeah.
So the Blackstones and the Chase of the world are being proactive this time, and they're creating rental housing because if the economy changes, the last thing you want is someone who could barely afford the house and afford the upkeep. So it's just, I think it's one of the smartest moves ever. It's a hedge.
Yeah. That makes a lot more sense. It gives a lot more clarity as to why they're jumping out there.
That's all this is all it is.
Right. Wow. You know, what do you think has happened to the buyers and sellers of COVID? It sounds like we just see increased demand. Is there more availability? Is there less inventory, more inventory?
So, you know, I'm one of these people that when I hear stuff, I say, don't cry me a river. Because the same person that's complaining about housing costs, you go to Oak Brook Mall, you go to any of the malls, it's packed. Mm-hmm. Okay, so if you don't have money for housing, then what are you doing here? You can't park. I mean, you can't get in the parking lot.
So that's interesting, right? So social media with realty, right, and sales professionals, we all, this image, right?
Sheep are led to slaughter.
What would you give as advice in regards to a realtor's image right now if maybe they're struggling with sales? I don't know.
So if they're struggling with sales, they just need to reevaluate whether or not this is the best career for them.
Sure. Fair enough. I mean, I think a lot of these think that their image is everything and they have to have this, you know, this persona and drive this ridiculous car. And what I get from you is that that's great, but really the knowledge basis, right? You actually know your craft, know the real math.
You need to understand why everything goes on around you. Like I was having a conversation earlier, people were complaining about gentrification in South Shore. And I said, listen, my people had 40 years to make a difference. People complain about what happened in Logan Square. The Hispanics had 40 years to make a difference. Some to cry me a river.
You know,
as a
token white guy, I can't
interpersonal skills.
Fair enough.
Okay.
What do you think is, if you had to pick one skill set that you mastered that you can attribute to making you a successful agent, what do you think that is?
Not caring what other people think.
Wow. Yeah, that's a truly actually meaning what you just said is an amazing skill. Some people say it, but they don't necessarily mean it.
So
right?
I listen, I cannot control what you think of me, and it's not my job to change you.
Yeah.
I can only be me, and you either like or don't like, but if you don't like, it's okay. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
We don't have to be liked by everyone.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Okay.
I mean, we became this society where we have to like everybody, and unfortunately, not everybody
Sad.
gets along, right? What do you think the hardest part about being an agent is?
Being consumed by the other agents around you.
Really?
You know,
How
so for example, and I was victim to it too. So everybody posts closings, volume, sales, all that. And
Guilty.
then once I took the National Association of Realtors Commercial Achievement Award, I said, you know what? Unless I can get a higher award, this stuff doesn't matter. I just looked at an agent's, this is a true story, I'm not going to say the name. I emailed an agent to give them an update on their client that they referred to me, right? I swear to God, from here, he had one statement. Hey, K-Rock, thank you so much for the update. This is how long his signature line was. Okay, dude, are you in real estate? It doesn't, clients, the only thing clients care about is whether or not you are good at your craft. Mm-hmm. Posting what you achieved in the previous year is not the answer, all right? Transferring value is. Why should I work with you versus the other person?
I think the only counter I would have, right, is that I find that some clients want to see that who they're working with is successful, right? But the only way you're going to be able to do that is providing value. It has to be so concrete, honest, real value to then back it up of I'm not just making things up, right?
The value gets you in the door.
Yeah.
Your accolades qualify you.
Fair enough. That's a great way to put that. I like that a lot. Yeah. So, I mean, I'll be honest, right? You probably have the busiest social media out of anybody I've ever met. You are everywhere. You know everyone. You're at every party. How do you keep up with all this?
So, keep in mind, most real estate brokers are real estate brokers only.
Yeah.
So, I'm on the board of a publicly traded cannabis company. I own a franchise of chocolate franchises. And then I have real estate, and then that's just me. Then my family has auto dealerships. You know, we have 2 country clubs. You know, so it is. So what I do on social media is because of all of us. I'm the most creative when it comes to that. However, I appear to. It's funny because I say this all the time. I appear to be everywhere, but I guarantee I'm at home every night by 9 o'clock.
Yeah. People that are close to you know that.
The Irish
right?
exit.
Yeah. It's true. It's true.
Okay.
But here's the thing, right? You're nice to everybody you meet, right?
I respect everyone.
Yeah. And you continue to network with everybody, and you go out and you're present, right? And
Because
people think of you.
Because the thing is, your life is as important as mine. So I want to take the time to get to know who you are. Can I add value? I don't know. You know, we don't know. You know, and I'll give you. My mother's furnace went out this weekend, and you know, after some rogue HVAC guys, I called one of my clients who's a commercial engineer, and he referred someone to me. They came out within the 24 hours, and from a $6,000 bill, it was actually $150.
Wow.
Now, I've only met him twice at a NICAR meeting, but we had lunch a couple times, and that was it. And I felt comfortable to reach out to him. Wow. Yeah, that's what it's about.
Listen, I'm from Arizona, right? And something I had to learn was how Chicago does business. Yeah. It's. I love the West Coast. I love how friendly everybody is. And you know, you come to these big cities, sometimes it seems aggressive. It's probably the best word to use. It's not aggressive. It's that the qualifications, right?
Absolutely.
Everybody's got a guy. You know, you got to earn somebody's respect enough to be their guy, right? And once you're their guy, you share that with everybody because you want to support them and help them.
Absolutely.
Network out there, and if anybody I'd find that was a master at their craft of networking out there and becoming the guy, it's you.
So this is the only time I'm going to quote Kanye. All right, so you never know who needs who.
Right.
So if your friends can't use you for your contacts, you are useless.
Wow. That's a Chicago way of putting things. That's fantastic. So you run a team, you coach, you mentor. You most recently held the biggest class you've held so far. How many agents did you coach?
It was 40 in one class, 355 total for the year.
Wow. That's incredible, and I'm sure you changed some lives, and you continue to do that. I have to ask you, who is your hero?
My mother.
Wow. Tell me about your mother.
Single black woman in the 60s raising 2 kids on the west side of Chicago to $30,000 a year salary. Somehow she put both of us through college, and to this day she goes to church every week, you know, choir. My dad had a heart attack and a stroke at the age of 10 years ago. They were divorced for 15 years prior, but she stayed with him every day up until he passed away this past October.
Condolences. I'm sorry, I didn't know that.
It was his time.
Yeah, that's beautiful, though. She sounds like an amazing woman.
Everybody knows Mama Rocio.
That's awesome.
Tough lady.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I bet you it's where you get it from.
I'm just so proud of her.
I have to ask you this exercise, right? I think it's cool. Tim Ferriss does this, and I think it's awesome. So if you had to pick a quote, anything, doesn't have to be from somebody else, your own quote, and you put it on a billboard for everybody to see, what would it be?
Believe in yourself.
Believe in yourself. Tell me. Why?
That's it.
That's it.
That's it. Just believe in yourself. Know your worth. And
simple, to the point.
Nothing
believe in who you are and what you're about, and that's it.
That's it.
Just keep moving. And that does it for this edition for Coffee is for Closers. But honestly, Kevin, I can't thank you enough. You're an incredible human being. You're humble, and I think you've inspired those that have just listened to your story today. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for your time, and I appreciate you.
Always.
You heard it here. Believe in yourself. I want to wish you and your family a happy holiday, and as always, thank you for the coffee appointment.